I'm so excited to welcome our guest today, Katrina Abdullah. Katrina believes in a God, health, family, then business approach when coaching, and recently just embraced her own health journey and said goodbye to 65 pounds forever. Katrina has been in real estate for over 14 years and has served in many roles. In 2020, after spending a decade learning from top leaders in the industry and serving as CEO of a #1 franchise, Katrina traded in that role for the opportunity to partner and coach with leaders at no matter brokerage affiliation. She currently serves in the role of growth partner with the Locker Room Real Estate Coaching Company. Today, Katrina will share how she walked through the death of her precious daughter, Kai, and how she has had her pain rethreaded into purpose. Please welcome Katrina. Welcome to Rethreading Lives podcast. My guest today is Katrina. And you know what? As I'm sitting here, I was like, I don't know if I've ever said your last name.
Really?
Yeah. How do you pronounce your last name?
Abdullah. Abdullah. Super easy.
I know. I would have said it like that. I don't think I've ever said it. Katrina Abdullah. Longtime friend, longtime advocate of Rethreaded, has been in the real estate business for your entire career, I believe.
14 years.
14 years.
Yep.
And now you're running a couple of your own businesses. Mm-hmm. One real estate.
Related.
One.
Yeah. So I partner with a company called the Locker Room Real Estate Coaching Company. So that's one thing I do. And I work with broker owners and leaders of other brokerages, mostly like indies, getting started, like boutique. Mm-hmm. And we come in there and we partner and we help them with their systems, their models, recruiting, retention, all the things. So it's so much fun.
So is that because a lot of boutique brokers don't have the support of like a Keller Williams or a bigger...
Yeah, 100%. Like they don't have that franchise support. So we can come in there and we can fill the gap with training and systems and models and things. And then it's really cool. I was actually onboarding someone on the way here. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thanks. And then I recently was on a health journey. Well, I'm still on it. And I lost 65 pounds. And
woo-woo.
I know it's been a journey. And I decided to become a health coach and add that to my resume, but mostly because, you know, I know a lot of busy women like myself, like you, that are out there doing their thing and our health always falls on the back burner. Mm-hmm. So I thought, if I need this, I know a lot of women who need it. So yeah, I've been doing that since it's been almost a year and a half.
And it feels like a lot of women have needed it.
Yeah, I've helped a lot of women. Mm-hmm. It's been such a cool, you could have never told me I wouldn't be doing this a few years ago. But I love it. It's one of the most rewarding things I get to do.
So good.
Yeah.
So me and Katrina know each other because this was, I don't know how many years ago. 6, 5?
It's been 5 years.
It's been 5 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So 5 years ago, I snuck into her realtor event. You were the sales manager. What was your title?
I was the team leader.
Team leader. And I was trying to reach realtors to sell our corporate gifts.
Yep.
And Katrina had an event, and she is tenacious, and I am also tenacious. And I showed up at her event.
This is true.
And I asked one of the realtors, I was like, who do I need to know in this room? And he goes, you need to know Katrina. Mm. And I walked over to you and I started to pitch you the idea and the organization. And that's when you had the revelation.
Yeah. And it really, truly was a revelation. Mm-hmm. After losing my daughter, I didn't have the language. Like that's so funny because I think that was, so I lost Kai in June of 2018. And I feel like we met in like August.
Yeah.
It was like August because it was starting to cool down a little bit, but it was still warm and we were at that brewery. So yeah, I think it was August. And you were talking to me and I'm thinking, what? I know stories like this. But it was literally the first time I'd heard language trafficking, sex trafficking. It was the first time I had heard it. And I was thinking, I'd asked for help so many times and no one had ever said, this is what's happening to your daughter.
So many questions from this point, but I want to give the audience some context. Mm-hmm. So that was 5 years ago. your daughter, at this time, you knew your daughter had passed away from an overdose, right?
From an overdose.
Or from an overdose. So you were in the middle of grieving your daughter. How old was she?
22.
22. And we met.
I had really just gotten back to work.
Right.
Yeah, that was.
It was still so fresh.
Yeah.
And then, so I'm just going to fast forward to this 5 years, and then we'll go back.
Sounds good.
Then we'd love to hear the journey. Now, I feel like you are an open advocate for other parents whose kids are in addiction, or if they're in addiction, or people in addiction. You're an open advocate for women in human trafficking.
Yep.
And you have somehow made it on this other side of this most horrific, I mean, the nightmare of all parents, to lose their kid.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add to the now part?
The now part. So, I mean, I can just say that like we serve a redeeming God, and his plan is restoration. So if you're starting to tune in and you're thinking, wow, I don't even know if I want to listen to this, you need to listen, because the restoration is the best part. And it's not just for a select few, it's for everybody.
And when I look at your life, I look at it and it's like God restored and healed and then expanded. I mean, that's my impression. I mean, you're running businesses, you're healthy, you just seem full. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I found freedom. So I found freedom through this journey, this pain that no parent should ever go through. And what I want to say is, I have a health coaching client that lost her daughter very similarly to mine. And when I became a client or a coach, we make a list of who we want to help, like who's on our heart. And she was on my heart. And I'm just so thankful to be walking this journey with her, because nothing steals your confidence like losing a child.
Really?
Yeah.
Your confidence.
Your confidence. Like no one talks about that, but it's such a strange dynamic, because you're in charge of this person, this human. You grew them inside your womb, you birthed them, you've put them first, you've fed them, you've nursed them with your body. You've put them in a car seat and a seatbelt and taught them all these rules to keep them safe. And it's literally your one job as a parent is to keep your child safe. So when you lose a child, especially, I think, and I can only speak from my sense of grief, right? When you lose a child the way I did, which when you're watching them battle addiction, and now that I know, being trafficked, you lose them so much sooner than when their earthly body actually leaves,
It's a multiple deaths of your child.
Oh yeah. It's like, they're not showing up for holidays, you're not talking to them. You don't know where they are. There's so much anger and emotions, and, it's not a skill set that like we really know. But when you lose a child like that, your confidence, it like shakes everything that you've ever known, because you have to learn. You have to go through the phases of grief. And one of those is like, going through the guilt of it all. Could I have done this differently? Would I have done this differently? Where did I mess up? Where is my DNA in all of this? And, I'm a super accountable person. So that's one thing I looked at, but nothing shakes your confidence like losing a child. That's like what I see when I talk to other mostly moms, is their confidence is completely shaken, and you have to rebuild it. And it's going to be different because now you're doing it with a void.
And I guess it's how blame and shame manifest. One of the ways it manifests itself is stealing your confidence.
Oh yeah, sure. Like that's what the enemy seeks to kill, seeks to kill and destroy and tear down what you think you know. And your confidence is most fragile, right? Because as parents, society says you're a successful parent when your kids graduate high school and then college and then gets married and has a family. Well, if that's stopped for whatever reason, what's that do to your confidence? I'm not a good mom. I'm not a good parent. I didn't do enough. I didn't reach them enough. I should have tried harder.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's so much I want to dive into that.
It's a lot to unpack, honestly.
I mean, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is the rethreaded process, right? Like blame and shame steals our ability to hold life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So maybe we go back a little bit further. What did your life look like around when when she was taken? Like what happened? And what was, I mean, I feel like such important. I know some of your journey, like an important part of your journey that I want people to know is your advocacy.
Yeah.
Because it's not like some of our women will disappear into the life and no one sees them.
Mm-hmm.
And you advocated.
Mm-hmm.
And still the system, anyways, there's so much. But
there's so much.
Maybe we can just touch on it because I don't want to get stuck there.
Yeah.
But what I want people to hear is how you worked through it. But I think part of the sadness came from the way you advocated for her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it always felt like I was hitting a wall. I'll just give the example of writing the letter to the judge that I knew she was going to see and just literally begging the judge, please put her in treatment. She needs help.
So how long had she been in addiction at this point?
It's really hard to say, but I would say about 1.5 years, 2 years. Because, yeah, I would say her total time that I knew about any addiction was about 3 years.
About 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And do you know at any point how long she was in the life?
I mean, it escalated pretty quickly, but I would say about
which doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, which I would say about 1.5 years.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, your daughter's in addiction. And she had gotten arrested, and at this point you knew something was wrong.
Well, so I knew she was dabbling in drugs, right? I don't know how serious it is because it's so funny. Like addicts are very sneaky. And it's like one time I'd see her and she'd look terrible, and then give her 2 weeks, she'd look herself again. So it's like this whole thing back and forth. So it was really hard to say took me a long time to say, okay, she has a drug problem. That took a while. But my oldest son actually showed me a posting where she was on Backpage. And actually, he told me about it. And then I talked to a good friend of mine who was kind of like more connected to the streets. Because when you got a sick kid, you start reaching for people like, who do I know that can help me here? And I reached out to him. He's the native of Jax, and he kind of knew about this lifestyle. And he started looking for her, and he is the one who actually showed me the, I don't know what we want to call it, ad on Backpage. And I showed it to my sister-in-law at the time because I was like, I don't even know what this is. And she said, oh, this is more than like her smoking weed. This is bad. So that was kind of like my first introduction into just seeing what was happening with her.
And still no knowledge of trafficking at that point?
No, I just thought, oh, she's prostituting herself. That was like my thought.
All right. And how much more do you want to share of this back part? Like, what do you want to share during that time?
Well, I want to share that. I mean, it was just a series of looking for my child at that time, just constantly, because I think it's important for the audience to know how desperate it was for me on my end as a mom. It was like, if I didn't hear from her or she wasn't in my home, I would have to go online and look for her constantly. It was like constantly going. And when I was looking for her, it wasn't like I just seen her. I seen hundreds of women that became familiar to me, their faces, I could tell by their tattoos because sometimes they wouldn't show their face or whatever. And I thought, what is happening? This is okay. This is like on a website, you know? So, and then we would set up like stings, me and my family. We would like send people to text the numbers and arrange to see her. And then we would send the cops and every single time the cops would be like, well, we can't do anything. There's no proof she's doing anything. There's no proof they're breaking the law. This ad doesn't mean anything. We can't help you.
Because she was over 18.
Because she was, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Even though she showed up with bruises and.
Yeah, bruises, broken jaw. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then one night you got a phone call that Kai had passed.
Yeah. Well, so she there was like a space in between there. So I'd written a letter. She had gotten picked up on a charge, a sealed so like selling narcotics to an undercover officer while staying with a known gang member in a hotel right off of JTB. So the case was trying to get this guy, this gang member. And so I wrote a letter to the judge and I just said, please, if you could put her in a rehab, just want to help her. Because I had actually turned her in and then her trafficker bailed her out like within a couple of days. So, which was also hard for me to do. And then I write this long letter and I go to court with my daughter. And basically the state's prosecution is trying to use the letter against me and her, and I'm on the stand and I'm like, I just want her to get help, and she was totally treated like a criminal. And that was really hard for me. I thought, if I can't write a letter, a mom to a judge and say, please help, then the system isn't what I thought it was. And I was already trying to get her Marchman acted and all that. And it just gets you nowhere. I got nowhere. So they put her on probation. She was still using, so she didn't pass all her drug tests. And then she got picked up for violating her probation. So then she went to drug court for 7 months.
Like in jail, 7 months.
Matrix,
like the Matrix.
The Matrix. So she did the Matrix program. And I thought, wow, okay, so I'm going to see her every chance I get. And we're super hopeful because I know she gets to work on her challenges. She gets to do group. And, still, this is going to sound crazy. I knew it was bad, but I still felt like it's just a stage. Like she's going to grow out of this.
Which was probably a lot of the advice you got, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And so she got out, I think April of 2018. And she came over. She had dinner. I was really hopeful. She was still super secretive, living somewhere I didn't really know where it was and stuff like that. But yeah. And as far as I know, she was sober. As a matter of fact, the night before I got the call, she had come to my house while I was at work and she was just hanging out with her little brother. She spent the whole day with her little brother, who was 11 at the time. And actually her stepdad, my ex-husband, went and brought them food and lunch and hung out with her for a little bit. So, I was like, wow, this is the old Kai, because her heart was for her family. She loved to do family stuff, family activities, go on family trips. So I thought, okay, it's good. And she had left her laundry at the house like kids do. So it felt like everything started to feel good and familiar, And she asked me to put her laundry in a bag, and she had asked if she could have a TV. I had an extra TV and I said, yeah, you can come get it. So that night she had come back to the house to get her laundry and get her TV. And Daniel came in my room to get the TV and I didn't get up because I was really tired. And I'll never forget it because I wished I would have gotten up. Yeah.
That's a hard thing to forgive.
It's weird. It's so silly because, it was like 10:30 and I'm like, I'm tired. She's, I'll see her tomorrow.
Yeah. No way to know.
Yeah, because we had plans. She was actually that Saturday morning, she was going to start shadowing with my front desk girl to learn that job and, do it part-time. And we were going to go shopping for a new bed. So that was our plans for the weekend.
And then the next day?
So yeah, the next day I had an event at work for all the agents. And it was a weird a weird series of events. But I remember I ripped my dress of setting up all these chairs and stuff. And so I went to Target and got a new dress. And it's just not even a dress I would ever buy again, but it's what I wore. And so we had this great event. My son was helping Daniel. He was helping kind of put it together. And then he asked to spend the night with his cousins, which my kid, he does not like to be away from home. So I was like, okay, fine. If you want to go, that's okay. And I went home and my bestie said, hey, do you want to go listen to a band? And I thought, all right. I wasn't going to go, but I decided to do it. And we're out at this place listening to a band and just having a couple cocktails, just kind of like unwinding from, it was Friday night. And I got a call from my oldest son who doesn't live here, but the person with her called him and he said, Mom, Kai's dead. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? I had to like go outside so I could hear him. And he's like, Mom, she's not, she's gone. I'm like, what do you mean? I don't understand what you're talking about. And he's like, well, she overdosed. And he just told me just like that. And I'm like, no, she's clean. I just saw her. Like she was just at my house the day before. We were all just, she was hanging out with her little brother. So yeah, then I went back in and told my best friend and her husband, and we just kind of like took off and started heading to where she was.
And that started the hardest thing. It started. So do you have words or at all to describe what it felt like the next season?
The next season. There was like this sense of helplessness. Because you can't change any of that. You can't change any of that. And there was also this fear. Like I had this massive fear running through my veins all the time. Because when something like that happens, that's not supposed to happen. That's completely out of order. You lose a child like that. You start to realize anything can happen. And I thought anything can happen. What's going to happen next? That was really, I couldn't sleep in my bed. I had to sleep on the couch. It was just this weird fear that I had of just something happening.
So like shook all safety, whatever safety control you think you have in your life.
Yeah. And you know what? I thought like, what if somebody comes for me? I don't know. It was just, it was this whole weird, irrational fear that I could not explain that just took over my whole life. So there was a period of being like really afraid.
And then what helped to start to soften that?
Well, my faith. I did a lot of praying.
Could you still pray? I mean,
oh yeah.
Really? You weren't pissed or?
I mean, listen, me and God had some angry conversations. And you know what my pastor told me when I told her, I was like, I'm mad about this. And she said, well, God can take it. So you just tell him how you feel. And I did. But something happened super soon. Like I'm talking like next day soon. I was getting in the shower and I was showering for like, I don't know, the third time. It was again weird, and I was waiting for my pastor to come over and I was like, God, what do I do? I'm crying in the shower and I just don't even know how like you move on because I don't know what to do. And I felt this movement in my heart because I'm not going to say it was an audible from God or anything, but it was like, you will tell her story. Like I felt peace in that moment. Like immediately I'm going to tell her story. And I thought, well, I don't even know what story to tell, but I said, okay, I will tell her story. I will be brave. I will talk about this. And that's when I started really sharing about addiction, just because all the time that she was struggling, I never said anything but to a couple good friends and
because
family.
You didn't understand it or you were ashamed?
Embarrassed. I was worried about how would people judge me, and I was in a role too that was pretty open and, in a leadership role. And, I didn't want people to think that I couldn't do my job, and I thought, her, again, confidence in parenting when your kids do their own thing. It's really hard because so much of society says your kids should be doing X, Y, and Z. And if they don't, then it's your fault.
Which, I mean, part of the sphere is openness, which is the willingness to be vulnerable, to be seen and let yourself be seen, which allows you to have community and support. And I bet there's so many parents, family members walking around with the same thing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, right away, I wished I hadn't been so quiet because as soon as I started talking about it, so many people came out and said, I'm struggling with this with my child. I'm working through this now. I'm afraid that this is going to happen to my child. So not only was I like, welcome to a different community, that I gave other people permission to say, this is also what I'm struggling with.
I remember that. I remember watching some of the videos you made.
Oh, yeah. The Facebook Lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember, I mean, like, but how in that time of your life you were able to hold this horrendous, heartbreaking, and almost like this new purpose that was rising up.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really remarkable.
That's a good way to put it.
And now it makes so much more sense. Now that I'm hearing the story in chronological and how you felt like Kai's going to tell your story, you just didn't know where you were going to tell her story. And then you met me. You met Rethreaded.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes so much sense now.
Yeah, because meeting you and learning about Rethreaded, that gave me clarity. That gave me, oh, I have a name for what was happening to her. So then it like, first of all, pissed me off because now I'm like, she was a victim this whole time and I didn't know. No one ever said to me, this is what's happening to your child. Nobody. And I mean, I talked to police officers, I talked to the court, I talked to the judges. I mean, I talked to counselors. Nobody said. And, I have thought, what difference would it have made? Well, I would have known what to advocate for. I would have known what to look for. Maybe I could have found Rethreaded. Maybe I could have, I could have found something, a bridge, something to fill that gap to meet her where she was at.
Yeah. You could have found, another survivor advocate, anyone could have gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Helped. Because really that's what she needed, was someone in the system to advocate for her. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, we can.
I mean, we can.
Yeah.
But you know what? I would have liked to have that option as a mom. Because when your kids are hurting, you want to do whatever you can to try to help them. So yeah, I was really upset, but I remember us realizing like, this is more than me just crashing an event.
Yeah. And now it's even, and now 5 years later, I'm like, oh my gosh, God, that was actually really amazing. Because then we hosted Kai's anniversary.
Yeah, her 1 year.
Her 1 year?
And an anniversary. Yeah. Yeah, the anniversary of her passing. Yeah, we did like some apps and cocktails, and we had a bunch of people in the store, and when you were in the small, it was like a room like this.
It was. This was our retail store.
This was the retail store right here.
That was it. That was definitely intimate.
I
love that.
Yeah, but like every time I made a post or did a video or did an event like that, it helped me heal.
Why do you think it helped you heal?
Because I felt the knowledge helped me feel empowered where I had felt powerless for so long. So just the knowledge of knowing that this is what happened, that she was coerced, that she was exploited for her vulnerability, which was her addiction, right? She's not here to speak for herself and fight for herself, but I can. I can still talk about it. I can still say to her trafficker, like, I'm holding space for her still. Yeah. Like that space is always going to be held. So that was important and it helped.
So how did you get through the days when it hurt too much?
Really my faith, just lots of prayer. Really believing in God's promises. You know, the promises aren't like, if you have an easy life, I promise this. So I was like, okay, well, these promises are good no matter what. That was like one thing I kept in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
The other thing was talking about it. I know it made a lot of people uncomfortable. It made me uncomfortable a lot. I got sometimes I look back at posts I did. I'm like, ooh, I said that. I was not playing. You know, like I said what needed to be said. And
do you have an example? Do you remember something specific you've seen?
Oh my gosh. Especially those early days. I was not that grace-filled. I don't know. I think sometimes I said a lot of like subliminal things to, you know, as if I was speaking to her trafficker or as if I was speaking to the dealer. Because, you know, now, even with the way she died of a fentanyl overdose, they would call that fentanyl poisoning today. It wouldn't just be an overdose. It would be an open investigation.
What do you mean?
I mean, now if someone dies like that, they investigate, they run it down. They say,
that's changed in the past 5 years.
That's changed in the past 5 years, which I'm thankful for. So, you know, because it'll help somebody else. Right. And that's
what your daughter didn't get.
No, she didn't. It was just like, oh, this looks like a drug house. It's an overdose, closed case.
Gosh.
There was a lot of things that I'm thankful I was in prayer about. I do have other women that have somehow, and I'm not even kidding you, showed up on my timeline with children that have passed. I don't know if Facebook has connected us or what. We don't even have friends in common. So this whole community has, you know, I've become a part of, and some of them don't have faith. And to watch people walk through this journey without faith is immensely heartbreaking. It's more heartbreaking than my heartbreak.
Yeah.
Because there's no hope there. And if there's no hope, then your life could easily end. I could see where my life could easily end when her life ended.
Yeah.
Could easily end. And part of it did. Like our family is not the same. And the damage is catastrophic. The damage of losing her is completely catastrophic. The pain, the circumstances, there's such an aftermath, you know? But so yeah, posting, sharing, just sharing, and then getting into service. So, you know, meeting you, working with the women at Rethreaded, just simple things like helping arrange an event or just being there, um, buying products. I mean, all those things helped. It just helped me getting other people involved, getting real estate. I think at the beginning, it was like getting realtors to purchase stuff, and I think that was a lot of it was getting realtors to do it. And then the community, the agents I had, the company I was with, everybody was just beyond gracious to me and my family. So
your community.
my community. Yeah.
So as part of the Rethreaded process, we talk about time, and time is your currency in this life.
Yeah.
Everyone has a limited resource. It's our currency to reach our potential. It's our currency to heal. So now that you've had this experience, you have pre-Kai and how you viewed time, and now post-Kai and how you viewed time. Do you have any words for what's changed through this experience?
Oh, like a lot. I feel like everything's changed. Nothing's the same anymore. So after Kai, even though I was helping others and I was in service to others and I was advocating for addiction awareness and then trafficking, I was not helping myself. Behind the scenes, I was falling apart. I was drinking too much. I was overeating. I just wasn't healthy. I remember Jen came over to and she went out to the garage to put something in the recycling bin and it went ding, 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 ding. Cause there was a dozen or so bottles of wine in there. And she's like, I'm watching you. I'm going to give you this time, but I'm paying attention. She called me out.
She did.
Yeah.
She loved you enough to call you out.
Somebody needed to, but I already was drinking before any of this happened, but the drinking then became like more of a companion and it became a space filler, to help me take my mind because when I'm a workaholic. So when I was at work and I'm producing and I'm productive, I'm good, but then when I get home and the reality hits, my son isn't doing well. He's extremely depressed and angry. He's putting holes in the wall. He's, shutting down. He used to be a football star. Now he's not playing football. Like so many things changed and you got to navigate it. And it's really hard to face it head on. So I started drinking too much. And then, when you have a few cocktails, then all of a sudden you want a bag of Doritos. And, everything before I knew it got off the hinges. And, but I just kept doing that. And that went on for probably 2 years.
That was your coping, numbing way to cope. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure I relate. There's so many people who relate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and so COVID happened.
Oh, yeah.
So COVID happened and I left my role because I said, this role is no longer serving me. And
what did you mean by that? Like you weren't, like, what did you mean? Why did you decide to leave? Because did you have a plan when you left that you were going to start your own thing?
No. Zero plan.
I love it.
This is who I am, though. I'm a jumper. So things started to not work out, not feel good. And I thought I could no longer ignore what was happening with my son. That was number one. I just could not ignore it anymore. And I thought we got to get him some help. And, when COVID happened, people started talking about mental illness and how it was affecting people mentally and things like that. So I did something crazy. I reached out to his dad We have been not together since 2012. Yeah. And I said to him, I mean, we co-parent great. We're good friends. Everything's good. We see each other all the time. And I said, I think we need to come together and help this kid heal. And he's like, like, what do you mean come together? Like, and I said, I think we should move back into the house and we'll be separate, but he needs both of us right now. Like, we just need to do some normal family stuff with him. And he's like, all right. That's literally, I mean, he just agreed. He agreed. Super. I thought it was going to be a harder conversation. He was more apprehensive than me. I had already like planned it out in my head. He had like 2 seconds to think about it. And he said, sure. And I mean, he knew too. He just didn't know how bad it was because, he's got his life. We're over here, and Daniel is all of a sudden like not wanting to go to his dad's and just, he had gone really inward. And I thought, well, the only way to fix this is to put us all in the same place at the same time.
We're going to be inward together.
We're going to figure it out. So, gave up my social life basically. And he gave up his dad. And, we came together. So I moved back into the house with Daniel and I actually went into my daughter's room, my daughter's old bedroom. And, the best decision I made. The best, literally the second to quitting drinking, because that happened right after that. But that was the first best decision I made. They have rebuilt their relationship. They're closer than ever. Daniel still struggles. He still struggles with sadness, with anger, confusion. It's a lot. His life changed. I mean, she was like a second mom to him. They were very, very close. So, they had a 10-year age gap. So yeah, he has a lot of memory of her like dressing him and feeding him and watching SpongeBob together. So it was hard. And so, but taking that step back and making it about Daniel and not about me and not about his dad and just saying, let's do what we can because we don't want to go down this route again. Mm-hmm. Like, we don't know if this is going to prevent it, but if it does, we're going to do it. Mm. So that was the goal.
And this is what I love about this moment is that you were intentional with what you were going to do with your thread of harm, of hurt. You're like, I'm going to make a choice now and I'm not going to let it control my family anymore. We're going to do something about it. And I feel like that's what love looks like.
Yeah. It was like I had to be selfless, right? Because, it really is walking through all of this. There were opportunities where I could have been a little less selfish, right? Okay. So now that I know that, what can I do about it? Well, I can be a little selfless when I can. And this was one of those things where I said, okay, you cannot have my family. Like, I'm going to do something that nobody would ever think somebody would do.
But I love that you didn't let blame and shame. You're like, no, I know. This is my family. I know. And this is what we need.
This is what we need.
Yeah.
And I remember telling my best friend, she's like, I was wondering if you were thinking of that. I was like, I think it's the best thing to do. So that's what we did. And it's best decision ever. And it gave me space to heal because now all of a sudden I wasn't parenting on my own, which was a big relief. I had a space that was familiar and comfortable enough to build myself back up and heal myself too, which I really needed.
First time ever as an adult?
Yeah, I would say the only other time where I say there was a restorative time where I can kind of think about was when I first left my marriage and me and Daniel and Kai were in a cute little townhouse and it just felt good. But this time felt similar to that. I needed to slow down and not produce so much.
Yeah.
it was really the first time I had let myself grieve, because I remember like sleeping in. I hadn't slept in. I remember going to bed early. I hadn't done that. I remember staying in my pajamas for a while. I had never done any of that. All those things you see in the movies, like how people grieve, I hadn't done any of that.
Because it was go, 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 drink. I mean, everything
Numb
to avoid
yourself,
the feel. Yeah.
sleep, get up, repeat. Go to work. I mean, I was performing at a high level, one of the top performers in my industry in that role.
So when you finally did let yourself feel, it hurt.
Yeah, it did. And, it's like looking in the mirror, it's like, who am I? I was the heaviest I had ever been. I couldn't even recognize myself. I had been like not looking in mirrors for a long time. And I had been not looking at pictures people would take of me. I'd untag myself. I'm like, if it's not from my angle way up here, it's not getting posted, But when I really took a look at myself, I said, okay, something's got to change.
Wow. So brave. I mean, that's so courageous to do that and look at yourself in the mirror and own it.
Yeah. And then
on all levels, like own that I haven't grieved. This is how I've been handling it. I need to do something different. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So then I started like walking the bridges. That was one of my peaceful times, just kind of walking the bridges and silence, just in silence, just processing the way I felt and also trying to get healthy.
I remember because you went vegan first. Well, you stopped drinking.
Well,
Jen, or you went vegan
yeah,
first.
I had a friend, my best friend said, hey, we do an alcohol-free experiment with me. And I'm like, sure, like hesitantly, I did it. It was supposed to be just for 30 days. I had no intentions of quitting drinking. I actually thought it was impossible. But I did. I would listen to this book. It's called This Naked Mind by Annie Grace. And she has a Facebook page and she has a whole 30-day experiment. So it's really great. People reach out to me all the time and say, how'd you quit? This is how I quit. So every day I would listen to her book and walk every day. And you know what's so funny? I'll back up a second. When I left my role, I had never even walked my neighborhood. I lived in this really nice neighborhood. I had never been around the block. I sat on my patio for the first time and had like coffee and dinner. I had never even done that. Like, I think I had a couple glasses of wine out there. For lunch in the middle of the day, I was like reading a novel out on the patio. I'm like, who am I?
But did you like the person?
Yeah, I was like, this feels good. And then I had to like give myself permission to do this. And I think grief or not, I think women who are in production mode constantly, we have to give ourselves permission. Like, it's okay to be in our feminine, to sit out here, read a book, and just enjoy the birds chirping in the background. That's okay.
Yeah, I think that's what I learned on sabbatical. Like,
yeah.
To be, probably for the first time, took time to sit and be with whatever came up.
Yeah. Like whatever comes up, it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's
okay. It really is okay.
Yeah. And I started baking, like I baked some stuff. I just, got into like this feminine space that was really nice. And I hadn't been, I had not let myself go there in so long. And I think another part of it is a lot of my identity is tied to being a mom. And then you feel like a bad mom, like a crappy mom when you lose a kid to addiction and your kid's in the streets. That's a hard place to be. But
yeah.
So anyways, that's how I quit drinking. I started listening to her book every day. She sends you this work, you journal and you do the work and you're in this Facebook group. And honestly, I'll be honest with you, the Facebook group like scared the bejesus out of me.
Because
it was all these women that were like older than me. And they're like getting black eyes. They're going to jail, all from drinking. They're like falling down. And so one of the premises of the book is, one of the ideas is that you will, as you continue to drink, you'll increase your consumption. which was totally true in my life. And I mean, if anyone listening probably think about it now, you probably drink more now than you did 5 years ago, or when you were younger. So I thought, oh, I could be this woman. I could be one of these women. Like I could be fall down drunk. I could get a DUI. I could do this. So that really scared me. And the more I learned, the more I realized that I don't need to drink. It's okay. I started feeling better. I started getting little wins. And then I started learning about addiction. And it was like, okay, addiction's a family disease. I know it's in my family. With Kai on both sides of her biological, me and her dad. So I thought, and people ask me all the time, like, well, do you think you're an addict? Well, I don't know. I mean, I think there's different definitions, but when I think of the promises that I was breaking to myself, it all stemmed from drinking, every single one of them. So whether I'm an addict or not, drinking just doesn't serve me. So I gave it up.
Was that pre Kai's death too? Alcohol was serving that purpose as well?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was my companion.
Yeah.
So I thought, what if my son could see a mom who didn't pour a glass of wine at dinner every night? What if he could see a mom who could go out and have lunch with him and not order a beer? And I thought, what if he could see me live a life where alcohol was not a part of it? And so that just became my driving factor, is like, I want to see him. I want to really be present with him, and I want him to know me as a mom who changed something really hard about herself to be better.
I'm smiling because we talk about Rethreaded, how we each have a purpose, right? We have a purpose. We have our roles in our life, and we bring our purpose into each of our roles. And like, your purpose isn't to be a mom. You bring your purpose into being a mom. And you're that kind of mom because you're Katrina and you bring this thing. And I feel like those words you just said are your purpose. Like, and you do that everywhere you go. I want people to believe that they can do hard things. And in every job that you've ever done, in your coaching, in your people helping lose weight, that is what I feel like part of what you're created to put on this earth for is you want people to be able to do hard things.
Yeah, I want them to have transformation.
Yeah.
And transformation comes from doing something hard, but you know where it comes from? It starts with leading ourselves. It starts with getting control of something, because when we don't have confidence, it's because you haven't kept promises to yourself. You don't feel like you can trust yourself.
Yeah.
So here I was. I mean, I'm helping all these people. They're transforming, they're getting gains, but I'm a fraud. Because you can't even not drink one night so you can get up at 5 or 6 or whatever and go to the gym like you said you would. And that was the reality of it. And I had to really look at that and say, okay, I don't want this anymore. I want to be different.
Well, and the thing is, you had this excuse. You could have used Kai's death as an easy, like, you could have blamed it and been like, well, I'm hurting. So then I don't have to get up and go to the gym. I don't have to quit drinking because I had this thing happen to me. And you flip the switch. Like, no, this grief is my own now. And I have to deal with it in a way that helps me and my family. It's awesome.
Yeah. Like, do you just, and you're right. I could have used those excuses, and there were times when I did.
Yeah, of course.
And I might still do it. Like, tomorrow I might not get up. That doesn't normally happen. But I'm really honest about where I am all the time. This is where I'm at right now. This is how I'm feeling right now. And it's okay if that's where you're at and that's what you feel. But I will tell you what alcohol does, what it was doing to me, it was keeping me stuck. Because I'm not processing how I'm feeling, because I'm numbing myself. So as soon as I don't like how I feel, I take a shot or have a glass of wine or make a plan to go meet friends and drink. So I'm not processing. So I'm stuck, and I'm just so thankful that I was not stuck longer than I was. I would not be here right now. There is no way I would be doing the things I'm doing if I was still stuck back there. No, not a chance.
Love it. I mean, I'm getting so excited because when I did this 1.5 hour long training, Rethreaded process training, and that's what we talk about. The yuck makes you stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't deal with the yuck, then you'll be stuck.
You'll be stuck.
Yeah.
No matter what it is, whatever you're using, to cope, it'll keep you there. You know what's so funny is like the reality's still the reality. The feeling's still the feelings. The money in the bank's still the money in the bank. So whether you choose to face it now or later, it's whether you were facing it or not, it's still the truth.
And you giving up alcohol and making the choice didn't make walking through the pain of your daughter's death any easier. It didn't go away.
Mm-mm.
It didn't suddenly be like disappear.
No. As a matter of fact, it was like, oh, this is what it's like to sit in these feelings.
This is what it's like to
this sucks.
hurt.
But then God, he really started convicting me to just share more, talk more, do more, get involved more, help more. And it's like, what do you do now with all these sober Friday and Saturday nights? Well, what can I do? I can talk about it. I can help people. I can, sit in strip clubs with women and become their friends.
Tell us what you're doing now.
So I'm getting back into it. I had to take a step back, but Hadassah's Hope, serving with Hadassah's Hope and going into the strip clubs and sitting with the women and just loving on them. It's a great organization. I know that you guys are partnered up, and it's, the founder, Tammy, and she's got such a heart to just serve. And it really is meeting women where they are. And that's what I want. I want to do things where I'm meeting people where they are, not polished and like fixed up and everything, but just like where they are in their hurt. Because you know why it's so important to me? I think, what if somebody was there for my daughter in those places where she was, just the places where she was, not a special place, not a place she's going to get help, but just the places she was sitting with her, like how you started Rethreaded, just sitting with the women, right? Mm-hmm. So what if she would have had somebody just sitting with her? Would she have asked for help? Would she have realized there's somebody who loves her and cares about her, even despite what she's doing, where she's at? So if I can just be that woman for another woman, then I want to do it.
And you have such a deep perspective that you bring when you sit with a woman now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely a different experience for me. And a lot of times I find myself really just in observation mode. Really giving them their space, and I think they can feel it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times when I do have a conversation, it's immediate, like, I got to tell you all these things that's happening to me. And I'm not necessarily seeking it out because I am really in observation mode a lot. And I'm really hesitant because I'm also well aware that they may not all want to have my companionship. Right? I mean, let's be honest. We get that too. Mm-hmm. Even at Rethreading, right? Like, they're not always wanting us there.
No.
But if I can just be there, even just your presence, they can feel that goodness coming from you. And it's just worth it. I don't even care if I just say, if it's even just like, hey, can we exchange Instagrams? Great. I would love to be your friend on Instagram. Whatever I can do to just be a little closer to the opportunity to have that other conversation. I want to do it.
And let me see if I can phrase this question. When you go into the club to be with women, how do you let go of the agenda that you want? Because you want these women to be able to do hard things, heal from their pain, and leave and reclaim their life. Like, how do you walk into the club and sit with a woman in her pain and then walk out?
There has been so many times where I've wanted to take these babies, because sometimes they're like babies, and just put them in my car. Be like, can I come pick you up later? You can stay at my house. But you can't. I could do that.
Mm-hmm.
I could totally do that. But until a woman is ready to make a change, they're not going to make that change. You can't force it on them. They need to feel empowered. They need to feel ready. We're showing them that they have resources, that they have somebody, that they have groups, organizations. We're representing that. So where they need to be is like, meet us there. Like, wow, they're here. Now I need to say, I'm ready. And we have had girls, some of them, they come like to the Hope House or whatever. And then we have girls that just get out of the business, which is great too. I'll like text a girl every once in a while on Instagram. I'm like, oh, are you working tonight? I'll be in the club. She's like, which is weird too. Like, am I going to see you at the club? No, I haven't been working there. Like, I got a job. I'm working at Amazon. Wow, that's so cool. So
that is so cool.
It is so cool. So I think it's just that knowing that, number one, we're not the ones that are supposed to be doing the saving. That's not our job. Our job is to be the light.
So I was having this conversation at a luncheon I was just at with a city council member. Mm-hmm. And I said, how do we make our women seen in the city? Mm-hmm. They're in and out of hospitals or in and out of jails, JSO, the court system. How do we make our women be seen? And I think you kind of just hit on it. Like they just need someone to see them as a human as they're going through the system. That's it. Like, it's an easy answer, hard to implement, but just to see and be in that situation.
Yeah, because you have to accept them for where they are, because that's where they are right now. That's can they be greater? Yes. Can they do more? 100%. Is there better out there for them? Yeah. But that's not what they need. They don't need you to tell them that.
Because they probably know.
They probably know. They need to be seen right now where they are and know that, like, hey, even though I'm in this crappy situation, there's this woman who cares about me, who sees me, who's looking at me in my eyes, who's sitting right next to me in my naked self on this bleacher, asking me about my kids. That's what they need.
It's funny you say that. We did listening circles at Rethreaded. We asked women their experience with the police and all of them. I said, what would help you when you were in that situation? And they're like, if they would have just asked us questions about our kids, about what we cared about, it would have helped so much break down those barriers to be seen.
Yeah. One thing when people say, well, what do you guys talk about in the club? I'm like, they're kids. We talk, moms are moms.
Moms are moms. Ooh, that's good.
I mean, she's a mom. And yeah, her circumstances look different than my circumstance, but my circumstance could have been her circumstances.
Yeah.
It's just a couple different choices. That's all it boils down to. It's a couple different choices.
Someone finding that perfect vulnerability in you.
Yeah.
And saying, you should come do this.
You should come do this. Oh, can I tell you a story?
Yeah.
Gosh, you're going to love this. So I have a friend that I work out with. She's getting her real estate license. She's taking her class at can I say where? Like around where? It's a hotel. Hotel off of Bay Meadows. And so she's in there all day taking her class. And she's like, Katrina, she's taking pictures of the girls coming into the hotel. She says, I have not yet to see, like, you normally walk in a hotel, you see the managers or, the people working there. She said, I haven't seen one person. All I've seen is like a guy mopping the floors. And she said she was leaving and this guy approached her and said, if real estate doesn't work out for you, you can come work for me. I'm like, oh, they're bold. They're bold. And she showed me and she's like, this is what's happening. And this is still happening right in our city. And that's the part that blows my mind.
That people don't believe. And so where's that hotel? Bay Meadows in JTB? JTB?
Right off Bay
95.
95, right
Bay
off Bay
Meadows.
Meadows. Yeah.
I know exactly. I know what
I know exactly. I
Yeah.
knew when she told me. I was like, oh, okay.
because I think I've been to a Rotary meeting and I walked in there with one of our ladies and she goes, yeah, I was trafficked in this building.
Yeah. I mean, when I think about my daughter, she was trafficked right off of JTB.
Right off JT.
Right behind the Waffle House. That's right there.
Right there.
You know, to this day, I have anxiety when I look at hotels. I get anxiety. Like I can't, you know, just especially in Jacksonville, I can't take it. I only stay certain places, and sometimes when I wake up in a hotel, because I travel a lot for work, I'm overcome with emotions because I think how many women are waking up right now in a hotel that desperately want a different life. Yeah.
You hold space.
I hold space. So yeah, I can't like change it. These little things that we're doing can, right? This awareness, but I can still hold space. You know, I can still honor those girls. I can still pray for them. And I'm aware. And I think just the awareness is a gift because I don't see the world like everybody else.
You do not.
I don't see the world like everybody else. You know? So, you know, like every time I walk in a hotel, I'm on high alert. I'm looking around. If I see anything out of the ordinary or any girl someplace where I'm like, who are you here with? You know, a couple weeks ago, I saw a girl walk in a gas station with a suitcase. She's like kind of hiding. Like, what's going on with you?
And you're one of the few people that would notice her.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody else is paying any attention, but I'm like looking at this girl and she's kind of hiding behind the racks of stuff. And like, she told me she was waiting on her boyfriend. And I was like, well, do you want to ride somewhere? And she's like, no, waiting on my boyfriend, you know? So, but the awareness, if she keeps being seen and people keep asking her, do you need help? One day she's going to say, yes.
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 And that's what our women have said as well. They said, and I've had people on the other side, the police or someone say, well, if I ask a woman if they need help, they always say no. And then our women say, ask us until we say yes.
That's
please,
right.
Please
That's
keep
right.
asking us until we say yes.
Yeah. So what would it look like if everybody was that educated? And there were a lot more asks of, do you need help? Are you okay? Is there somebody I can call for you? And that happened every time. Every time they went in a store, every time, you know, because all of our workforce is trained and citizens were trained to see that and spot that. And there's enough people brave enough to ask, then we would get to the yes faster. Do you think?
Oh yeah. Like 100%. That's kind of what I've been thinking about is how do we create a culture, a citywide culture in our hospitals, in our systems that sees vulnerabilities? Like how do we cultivate that huge culture?
And then circles around them.
Yeah.
And cares enough about these women to say, I see this vulnerability in you. And I see you're out of place right now. How can I help you? You know, and making it normal.
Normalize community.
Normalize community.
All right. We're coming to the end of our time. So we talk about, we like to end it with a full circle moment. So this is kind of when the hard things, the good things have been threaded together and they make you stronger. Like it's almost the word we could use is integration. Do you have a moment, the full circle moment that you felt whole?
Well, speaking at the Rethreading Gala, that was a full circle moment.
Yeah. Can you talk about that a little bit? What you did?
Yeah. So one of my prayers from the beginning was, God, you know, if you want me to tell this story, give me the strength to just get through it. to say it all without being a weeping mess where no one can understand me. And when you asked me to speak, I said, okay, God, you're on. Like, this is, you gotta do this time. Here's the moment. But
and what was it like? So at I'll just, for listeners, our gala has 500 people. It's a sold out event, and it's our main awareness and fundraising event of the year.
Yeah.
And Katrina spoke about her daughter at the gala.
Well, we played a video first.
We played a video.
So we had recorded the video, kind of telling the whole story. And so by the time I got up there, number one, just a standing ovation, just like the community. It wasn't about me getting a standing ovation. It was like, wow, here's a community. So it's okay to be vulnerable, because when you're vulnerable, you never know who is going to come around you, circle around you. And I just think about like the elephant poem.
Yeah.
You know, there I was coming up there and to share this really hard story, and all these people had already circled around me. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah. So I felt at home. I felt, super comfortable. But just to know that her story and me telling it is going to be a part of lives being rethreaded back together, hope being sewn back together. That was full circle for me. I said, okay, if this is an evidence of God's goodness and plans for me in my life, I don't know what is.
Amen.
Yeah. Like, amen.
Well, I just want to, this was awesome.
Thank you for inviting me.
And I just want to speak over you. Just thank you for holding space. Thank you for seeing people. Thank you for pushing those around you to do impossible things.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. And we are better because you are living out your purpose. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome. And, sometimes you go through something and like living through it's not an option, right? But holding the space is an option. That is an option. So, and
no,
yeah.
I was like, that is such a good word to end on, that they're holding space is always an option, no matter how much it hurts.
Yep. 100%. Yep.
Gives you back. All right. Well, thank you for sharing your rethreaded story. It was beautiful. I'm excited to see what the future what the future holds.
I got a lot.
I know.
I got a lot in the works.
I have to ask you some questions after this about it too. All right. Thank you, Katrina.
Thank you.